Exactly 1 year ago, Dr. Ramphela Mamphele launched Agangsa and said, I quote, "Accountability begins with the president. Increasing accountability must go hand in hand with the war on corruption and waste." This past week, we saw the IEC chairperson, a court ruling by the electoral court finding that she needed to have stepped down due to the allegations against her and the finding of the public protector. Today, I speak to Dr. Ramphela Mamphele about this and other issues. Dr. Mamphela Mamphele, welcome to the show. Let me ask you first, do you feel vindicated by the finding of the electoral court on the matter of IEC chairperson Pansy Tlakula?
The outcome of the court case is a triumph of accountability in public office. It is an indication that our system works. And I believe that we ought to be very proud of the constitution we have and the electoral court's very careful approach to this matter. And I hope that Ms. Pansy Tlakula will put the country first, put the IEC first, and step down as the court suggests.
Does the system really work when you have someone in that position taking so long and fighting through one court and to the next until a court of the stature of the electoral court has to tell her that you should have stepped down?
Unfortunately, we don't yet have a political culture of accountability. When the public protector last year published her report, having spent a lot of time working with Ms. Tlakula, who was resisting facing up to the fact that there was wrongdoing, we eventually had the report, but she challenged that. We then had the forensic report by the Treasury, and she had something else to say. And then we took her to court before the elections of May the 7th, and she still resisted. And so there isn't yet the culture of accountability to go with our values and our principles as set out in our Constitution. So it's work in progress.
How do you inculcate that culture then among our political elite, among ordinary men and women in South Africa?
It starts with us as citizens being willing to be active. The small parties that took Pansy Tlakula to court were not the richest parties, but we used the scarce resources that we had as small parties to challenge the impunity that comes from a viewpoint that even though you are found to have been involved in wrongdoing by the public protector and a forensic audit, you still feel that you are a fit and proper person to preside over elections which really are about integrity.
Can I then question your bona fides in this matter? It wasn't just your party, it was the EFF, it was many others who joined in to get this ruling finally, and congratulations on that. And yet, you know, among yourselves, Mr. Malema, for example, is facing tens of charges of corruption, racketeering, and so forth. He hasn't paid his taxes and so forth. Surely that's the kind of person who should have said, I shouldn't be on the ballot paper as a representative of a political party. So you're standing cheek by jowl on your side with someone who is exactly like the people that you're condemning today.
The fact of the matter is that it is not for Ahang to judge who should and shouldn't be in the political space. If South Africans, including yourself, Justice, have not stood up to say Malema is not entitled to register a party and lead it into an electoral system, then we have to accept the fact that we have, as a collective of South Africans, said it's okay for Malema to stand up and to lead the party that he has led. And there are 1 million+ people who thought that he was good enough or the EFF is good enough to vote for. So it isn't really only about having the institutions of accountability, but it is also about what you and I as citizens of this country, do to be the guardians of accountability in public office. And that's not easy. I mean, we have also, on the other hand, a party such as the ANC, led by a man who also had his issues of having been found to have benefited unfairly by the public protector in terms of his private residence in Nkandla. Also leading a party that got 62% of the vote. So it isn't just Mr. Malema you must look at. We must look at the entire approach of South Africans.
You're absolutely right. I'm just saying, on your side, you're standing right next to the people that you're pointing fingers at. Surely, as a matter of principle, yourself and Mr. Holomisa and Mr. Lekota should have said, my friend, please step away. You're not one of us.
That, again, I have to remind you, it's not for me to choose for South Africa the people they want to follow.
No, I'm not talking about their votes. I'm talking about your decision to challenge Advocate Tlakula to step down in the Electoral Court. That was your decision with other political parties. Among yourselves are people who face exactly the same kinds of allegations. And yet you don't turn around to your friends and say, please, you are not one of us, but you can say to Advocate Tlakula, it sounds like this was a publicity stunt before the election just to make some, to gain some mileage.
That's not actually correct, and it's not even a fair comment. With regard to one right or one wrong doesn't make a right. The fact that Malema was prepared to stand with those in the opposition parties who took Pansy Tlakula to court, that's a good thing. The fact of Malema not paying his taxes and having his own issues is something that we, again, you and I, have to tackle. Now, when that issue arises, we will tackle it. But at this stage, what we were focusing on is an election that was going to be presided over by someone who had a cloud over her head. And that is something that we couldn't not do. And Malema wasn't invited by us as individuals. He was, by virtue of being a leader of a party that had registered with the IEC. If the IEC or any of the institutions of our constitution or our democracy had said, Malema cannot register a party because he hasn't paid his taxes or he has all of these things hanging, that's a different matter. But once we are in the room, it's like being in...
Do you believe that with Advocate Tlakula having been there, that this was a free and fair election?
Well, her being there obviously created a problem of mistrust. And in a lot of cases which some of us reported, and they are on record, there were very many instances of wrongdoing and of incompetence in the conduct of these last elections. But it can't be said that it's because she was there and having had this wrongdoing. What it means is that that in of itself, the conduct of our elections in South Africa works extremely well in middle class and upper middle class areas. But when you go to places like Philippi, where I actually pointed out on camera, your ETV was there, that actually the people conducting those elections didn't know what they were doing. It was chaos. Now that's not because Pansy had this cloud hanging over her head that happened. That's a separate matter, but it coming within the realm of a chair of the IEC with this cloud, then it raises even bigger questions. So your question about Malema, let's take the people in parliament. Are the people sitting, the parties sitting in parliament with Malema there, do they have an obligation to chuck Malema out of Parliament?
That's a totally different thing. The people sitting in Parliament, including your the two members of Agangsa, were voted for by the electorate. The question I'm asking you, and which you seem to be avoiding, is that you and Mr. Malema were sitting side by side and taking on this matter of Pansy Tlakula, but you yourselves are sitting right next to someone who faces the same issues. I'm saying to you that it's not the same, and that you should have stood up and said, if Mr. Malema is not stepping down, then surely Advocate Tlakula shouldn't step down. I find it hypocritical for you to say now that, oh, you know, it's up to other people to say this. It's up to you to say it.
Yes, of course it is up to me to say it, but in that context, what we were looking at is the IEC matter. In a context where we are looking at people who are leading parties who are not fit and proper persons, that matter we will deal with. In this case, we were dealing with an IEC matter. That Malema joined in the action is a good thing, that the people who, it's not just Malema, is not the only person in IEC or in the EFF who joined that action. That was a good thing. The issue of Malema not paying taxes and what other wrongdoing he has been involved in, I have spoken about this matter in public. But this case, let's not conflate Malema with the IEC. We're dealing with, is Pansy Tlakula a fit and proper person to chair the IEC? That was the matter that was in front of us. And we, as these parties that joined together, believed that the IEC has a beautiful reputation, great and proud reputation. And as citizens of this country, it is up to us to protect that reputation. And Pansy Tlakula, by being there with this cloud over her head, is putting that reputation at risk. And that, as you know, in democracies, is a dangerous thing.
Thank you, Dr. Ramphela Mamphele.
If people don't believe in the IEC, then we've got nothing else to really be proud of.
Dr. Mamphela Mamphele, thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate your views on this matter and others. After the break, our losers of the week.
News that moves. enca.com.